Welcome everybody to Justin's Room, Our Stories to Tell, every third Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Info on future and past events, registration playlist, and donation opportunity is available at bit.ly/Justin's-room, J and R are capitalized. You can register for any of the events at bit.ly/register Justin. R and J are capitalized again. Yeah. Justin's Room is co-sponsored by the Disability History and Culture Collective, the DHACC, and I Love You Lead On community. Okay, you were advancing before. Why are you not advancing now? There we go. This is my first go round with these. Sharon usually is here to do this. For those of you that are new or just joining Justin's Room, Our Stories to Tell, this was envisioned to promote stories about disability history. That is not on the slide. Justin Dart and his wife Yoshiko took a road trip multiple times across the country, sitting with disabled people in every state to hear their challenges, successes, and hopes. They brought these powerful stories to Congress, helping to turn shared dreams into the Americans with Disabilities Act. Bring your words, your poems, your art, your dance, your music, or your videos, whatever feels right for you. And Scott is going to lead us off, but others can have 8 minutes or however long we want to stay on.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
If you want to share, let us know ahead of time or just come and join the Zoom. The mic will stay open as long as folks have something to say, and every story is welcome. If you need assistance, you can email us at leadon, capital L and capital O, at iloveyou-leadon.com. The I, L, Y, L, and O are capitalized if you have any questions. And again, if you want information on future and past events, registration playlist, and donation opportunities, all again are available at bit.ly/Justin's-room. The J and the R are capitalized. And there is a QR code on the screen and a lovely line drawing of Justin Dart wearing his signature hat, his glasses, and his bolo, created by Teddy. So tonight we are going to be working on, I did not get a chance to edit the slide. It is not Myra Covery, it is Scott Cooper. We are going to be sharing stories about Judy Heumann and women's rights. Again, most of the information has been conveyed before about future and past events, registration playlist, and donation opportunities, again at bit.ly/Justin-room. Register at bit.ly/register Justin. If you need help accessing the event or want to read out loud or have a voice option during the presentation, again, you can email us at leadon@iloveyou-leadon-leadon.com. Move my Zoom etiquette and access. During the presentation, all Zoom attendees will be muted to support access and reduce background noise. If you need to use voice to communicate during the presentation, email us and we'll arrange a separate voice space just for that. After the presentation ends, we'll open up mics for conversation, unrecorded, one voice at a time as usual. Chat comments will be read aloud to provide access. If you don't want chat read aloud, use our private message. Accessibility info. ASL is provided for the presentation and will be spotlighted. Auto captions are available and can be viewed on screen or as a transcript. In the Zoom toolbar, there is a closed caption CC option. If it is not there, click the 3 dots for more options and locate it there. The ability to show, hide, or adjust captions is there, as well as the option to view captions as a transcript. A note about our ASL interpreter. In keeping with I Love You Lead On and DHACC's goal of making conversations about disability available and accessible to all, we invite our ASL interpreter to participate fully, asking questions and joining the discussion if and when they have them. Justin's Room sessions are recorded. All room sessions are recorded and will be available on our playlist within a few days with corrected captions and transcripts. Again, you can find the playlist on the Justin's Room website at bit.ly/Justin's-room, J and R capitalized. We will talk a little bit more at the break, and we have a small video, or when we have time, Susan, you can let me know when you want to show this. We need help to make this space accessible. I Love You Lead On community and all of its various projects are volunteer-led. We have a variety of ways you can support our efforts to provide full access. Our work includes the Disability History and Culture Collective, DHACC, this space, Deborah's Room, Judy's Room, Justin's Room, and other events on the horizon. And you can donate at iloveyou-leadon.com. ILYLO are capitalized /donate. You can also join our email groups. Disability History and Culture Collective has 2 Google groups for disability-related conversations. DHACC Disability Museum, focused on museums, exhibits, and collections, formal, informal, or in progress, and Disability Advocates Lead On for general disability community discussions, events, resources, and current issues. You may choose one or both, depending on your interests. And for instructions and more information, you can visit https://bit.ly/DHACC-Google groups. And I'll be putting all of these in the chat momentarily. I think we are ready for Scott to take over, and we'll get on with our program.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing your time on this afternoon, evening. I met Judy back in 2005. I think she was interview number 8 out of currently 1,620 in the archives. It was on a History Day project for my son, Eric, and she was at the World Bank. And it was just, Judy and youth were really strong. And to be an executive at World Bank, to take time out of her day to spend an hour with a senior in high school was pretty impressive as we were passing through town. We stopped there and then we stopped by South Catherine Knott. Back then they were doing Whatever Happened to Polio exhibit at the Smithsonian. So we filmed that, as well as a couple other leaders in DC. So I thought the best way to start this off is by starting off with a little 10-minute youth-produced film on Judy. About 5 years later, the Courage Center out of Minneapolis contacted us. They wanted to give her a Courage Award from Medtronics, and they asked us to do a little bio piece on her. So we sent our young filmmakers out and about to put together this piece for the Courage Center. I know some of you may have seen it. And as you all know, Judy is pretty famous on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube, you'll get 100 plus hits. Thank you for the work that you've done, Jim. That was extraordinary work. And that was a 30-year dream come true. I'm so proud when it finally came to the screen. That was good. Because we were talking about that way back in 2006 at the Berkeley Independent Living Center. So that just shows what determination, never give up, never let go. So so this piece will give us 10 minutes to relax, and then I'll be back and leave the floor open to other storytellers that had an intimate relationship with Justin Dart, which I unfortunately didn't come into the scene till 2005, so I never got to meet the man. But I did digitize 10,000 pages of the discrimination diaries, which I found in Jonathan Young's garage. He did a book back in '97 when he was an intern for the White House and used the discrimination diaries. And so there was actually about 60,000 pages out there. We found 10,000 pages and worked with ARC to digitize these. uh, from the 80s. And then we have to do a Freedom of Information Act to get access to the other 50,000 because they donated it when OSERS closed up in 99, 2000. They donated it to the Department of Labor, and they've yet to be seen ever since. There's about 12 boxes out there in our government archive somewhere from ODEP. Let me see the share screen. I haven't been on this thing for a while. Where's my... I'll just go to desktop. There. Boom. Can everybody see this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
Okay, good.
Is there captioning?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Judy Heumann has been at the heart of the milestones that have marked the progress of disability rights in America over the past half century. She has lived a life of innovation, determination, compassion, and advocacy, and her work has changed what disability means in America.
I learned that I could make a difference by speaking up for myself. And I learned that I could make a difference by working with others and having groups of us speak on behalf of ourselves.
She just was able to bring people together, focus attention, articulate not only a need, but a way to solve that need. And she has all of the characteristics of somebody who can bring about change without burning down the city.
It was such a discovery for me that you could do anything you wanted to, that you thought you wanted, you could achieve if you worked in it hard. Judy taught me that.
Judy was born to Jewish immigrant parents in 1947. At that time, New York was in the midst of a polio epidemic. At 18 months, she contracted the disease and would be a wheelchair user for the rest of her life.
Once my parents realized the nature of my disability and that it wasn't going away, my mother said, you know, you have to get a good education because you can't depend on anybody else to support you but yourself. When I was 5, she took me to school, but I wasn't allowed to go to school because I was in a wheelchair and the principal wouldn't accept me.
Heuman's parents faced systematic disability discrimination in the school system, but they weren't strangers to discrimination.
They were survivors from the Holocaust, and they never saw their parents again and never saw those living grandparents when they left who died also in the concentration camps. So I think the issue of strength and the ability to move forward in spite of adversity is something that they survived on, and that was imparted to me also.
As Judy entered high school, she realized all the more what was being denied to her by society.
I couldn't get on a bus, I couldn't get on a train, I couldn't get in a car, I couldn't go out to a store and use the bathroom, I couldn't go to the movies. I couldn't do things that my friends in high school and college were doing, not because, again, I was not capable of doing it, but because the environment around me wasn't accessible. And there was an urgency that people like myself were feeling that we had to make things happen quicker.
Congress passes the most sweeping civil rights bill ever to be written into the law, and thus reaffirms the conception of equality for all men that began with Lincoln and the Civil War 100 years ago.
With the Civil Rights Act of 1964, proponents of social change now had a legal basis to push through the reforms that were so overdue. The laws are just words. It takes committed individuals to see that they are enforced. When she was declared unqualified to teach because she couldn't walk, Judy took the New York Board of Education to court and won. There was Disabled in Action, a group Judy formed to break down more barriers. She led a series of demonstrations following President Nixon's veto of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. When Congress eventually overrode the veto, Judy had emerged as one of the country's leading disabled rights activists.
We needed to be a sophisticated group of disabled individuals and supporters to be able to get effective regulations developed to take a 24-word piece of legislation and really make it work.
It was this attitude that caught the attention of none other than Ed Roberts, one of the Rolling Quads, who was challenging the status quo on the West Coast. He asked her to come to Berkeley.
Well, I was intrigued by Ed, and I thought it could be really fun to be able to work with somebody like him, because I think we shared a similar vision of what we wanted to have society become and our view of empowerment for disabled individuals.
With Ed Roberts, Judy and others established the nation's first Center for Independent Living.
I think the important parts of the CILs is that they're really empowerment based. So as disabled people are working within those organizations, they themselves are instructing other disabled individuals by example.
Having fought the school system herself, she identified with children with disabilities who were still being denied a fair and equal education. So in the mid-1970s, she relocated to Washington to work on the development of IDEA, legislation that required free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive setting.
So I guess a lot of what I've always been dealing with is this issue of urgency and the importance of education, and how every lost day of a quality education, not just for disabled children, but for all children, puts them at a disadvantage.
By 1977, key provisions of the Rehabilitation Act, namely Section 504, had not been enforced, and the disabled community was impatient and angry. On April 5th, activists staged sit-ins at federal buildings across the country. In San Francisco, it lasted for 28 days and showed Americans that the disability rights movement was a force to be reckoned with. By 1982, Wilbur was in his second term as president, and laws protecting the rights of disabled people were becoming part of the mainstream. Building on their successes, Judy, Ed, along with Joan Leon, were ready for the next step, with Judy's focus on policy, Ed's desire to take the cause global, and Joan's research agenda. The World Institute on Disability was formed.
There was work being done in research, in public policy activities in the area of disability, but basically it wasn't being strongly influenced by the voices of disabled people. So one of the prime purposes of the creation of the World Institute on Disability was to bring the voices and vision of disabled individuals into the public policy arena in the area of disability.
For the next decade, Judy would serve as co-director of WID, encouraging dialogues and conducting training sessions across the nation. Also during that time, she would take part in possibly her greatest achievement, aiding in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990.
In the past, disability has been a cause for shame. This forced acceptance of second-class citizenship has stripped us as disabled people of pride and dignity. This is not the way we as Americans should have to live our lives.
Like many, I'm an impassioned person, feel a level of urgency, and also have felt increasingly motivated by the successes that we've made. At the same time, very frustrated by the fact that there are still millions of disabled people here in the United States and abroad who are being discriminated against and not being given equal opportunity.
During the past 20 years, Judy has remained at the forefront of disability advocacy, serving in positions for the Clinton administration, the World Bank, and as a special advisor for the State Department.
I'm excited to be a part of the work that the Obama administration and Secretary Clinton are advancing to really allow the U.S. to be an example for other countries around the world to advance the civil and human rights for disabled people.
Sit-ins in San Francisco, demonstrations in Denver, protests in Washington, D.C., the Gallaudet, and before Congress. People marched and organized and testified, and laws changed and minds changed, and progress was won.
In 1991, she was leading a training session in Oregon when she first saw Jorge.
I fell in love with his shoulders. When I met him, I saw him from the back and I loved his shoulders. And that's really the truth. That was how it all started. And then, over time, we have, I think, a deep affection for our vision. We have different components in our lives that come together that make an interesting new whole.
Over the past 50 years, the place of people with disabilities in America has changed drastically, and few people have played as much of a role in that change as Judy Heumann.
Judy taught me that if somebody says no, what they really mean is not yet. And she was absolutely right. And I have used it and again and again. And I saw her use it again and again. And she never gave up.
Judy inspires. It takes the time to empower young people with disabilities to be leaders and to take a role in shaping the movement.
She represents kind of a lever in society that can see opportunities and take advantage of them.
Judy's changed the way things work. And now, by mentoring and empowering young people, she's paving the way for a new generation to be involved.
As one person, you can make a difference, but as a village, you can have a much stronger ability to make more significant reforms. And I think my life really has been about that, not doing things alone, but doing things with other people.
For her service, compassion, leadership, and advocacy, she is the recipient of the 2010 National Courage.
So how many young people were involved in making that film?
4. We were at UCLA, so we went to Chapman Film School. Got a couple of their students. Victor, we put him on lead. He was young back then. It was 2011. And just let him go. We negotiated a $20,000 budget with Courage Center so they could travel around the country and gather fresh footage and do some archiving. And so it was one of our highlights of getting some employment for young filmmakers. And that's what we basically do. We work in a 10-minute format with young people. We try to get them to tell 10-minute stories well and use it as a portfolio piece. All of them are in the film business. Actually, Jim, you worked with one of our kids, David Radcliffe. Is Jim LeBrecq here?
Yeah, David was one of your kids.
Yeah, he was one of our kids, man, way back in 2009, 2010.
Well, David's gone on to be an important member of the Writers Guild of America and leading their disability cohort or whatever you want to call it. And David and I have crafted a lovely friendship over the years.
Yeah, I just talked to him a couple weeks ago. I always check in with him every 3 months, see how they're doing. And Spencer Siebert, he ended up opening up his own animation firm in Chicago, doing quite well. And then, she's in Boston. She's director of special education in Boston, was the other team member. So, and then another one became a producer. And that, yeah, if you give the kids a heads up and give them something to put in their portfolio, they'll take it and move it forward.
That's
so,
right.
Jim, I guess since you go way back with Judy, back from when you were kids, I'm going to give the floor to you and let you start us off on those stories.
Well, thank you very much, Scott. And I, it was just wonderful to see this pop up on my inbox and to join all of you. Making the documentary Crip Camp, Judy was very much involved. I think we filmed with her 4 times but talked about it. And it really kind of brought us much closer together than we had been. But when I think back, I'm meeting her at Camp Jened, when I was a 15-year-old, like so many other people, she set me on a course for the rest of my life. And that was, I joined Disabled in Action in New York. I would come down from Westchester on the train and keep my fingers crossed that I could get up to the street by finding, some ramp or elevator at Grand Central Station. But it gave me a purpose that didn't know I was looking for, and which was like, the world is unfair, this sucks, and I want to do something about it. Um, so it, and I think there's a couple of things I like to share in that. There was an interview that didn't make it into Crip Camp, but Judy was in Berkeley, and we were we kind of, wound up being a rainy day, so I was able to get us into one of the theaters at the Berkeley Rep Theater, and I told Judy that I felt like once I started working at the Berkeley Rep, which when I first started was not a new building. It was an old building. I had to climb up and down stairs to do my job. But I said, I felt like I kind of abandoned the community. I was just really busy. Was I like hanging out with the cool kids, or what was going on there with me? And she said, Jimmy. She always called me Jimmy. And she said, you never left the community. We had our eyes on you the whole time. We knew that you were climbing up and down those stairs to do your job. And that what you were doing was what the movement was all about. And, I didn't have a job in disability rights or support services. I I had a job pursuing the art and career that I really wanted to have. And I felt, absolved by, you know, by Judy of any kind of feelings that I had been holding on to for so long. Um, and look, in the course of making the film, when we talked, there were moments where she told me that she was really proud of me, and that always just, really usually brought me to tears, like I almost am right now. And because she, being who she is and how I got to know her, she meant so much to me. So I want to tell everybody that's on this call, I've been kind of keeping this very, very low key within the community, but um, I co-directed Crip Camp. I made a documentary about the ADA, which was on PBS last year. I made that with a wonderful filmmaker, Shauna Gazit, and Shauna and I have embarked on making a documentary about Judy. We felt that there was so much more to the story here of Judy, the person, what, and I think she touched upon this a bit in that video you played, Scott, about what motivates somebody to do what she did and to really dedicate her life to trying to correct the wrongs in the world, especially in the disability community. I think that a lot of people, especially within the community, know the 504 sit-in. They know other work, but not even within our community do they know much about her work with WID, with the World Institute on Disability, or the World Bank. And I know that her international work was really important to her. And then later on in life, her podcast, her video podcast, storytelling was really important to her. And finally, I think that her legacy lives on with the people she touched, the people she mentored, the people that she would call at 1 o'clock in the morning and you know, you know, and and so that's kind of where Shauna and I really stand at the moment. But I come here also to say that if people would like to um, kind of, help guide us to important stories or people or holdings, or would like to tell us about how Judy touched their lives, I want to. I just got the email all set up about 10 minutes before this call, but you can email me at jim@judyfilm.com. That's jim@judyfilm.com. Um, this film has the blessing of Rick, Judy's brother, and some of the folks that have really been looking out for her legacy, like Colleen Stargoff. And so um, I feel like I've got the blessings to pursue this project. So anyway,
I
could, yeah.
and I just am putting some links in that you mentioned for WID and World Bank and some of her other work. And I also put in Crip Camp website as well as the Crip Camp trailer
Great.
in the chat. And just to give a little breadth of her work, because one of my favorite stories about Judy was told to me by Jorge, her husband, back in the 90s. And you brought it up with, she'd always answer the phone at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And Jorge told me this story of, oh, Judy, just let it ring. I'm tired. Because he knew he had to get up and do some work. And the way work was done back before we had iPhones and contacts is Judy used to keep these restaurant reservation books, these huge restaurant reservation books by the hour. And so for your research, Jorge has all of her early work by the hour, who she talked to, what they talked about. So he would have to get out of bed, and he's a chair user, and go and she'd go, oh, give me 1979. Oh, Jorge, give me 1986. And so all these reservation books would be all over the bed and that. And he'd just go, oh my God. Finally, she's working at OSERS, and they give her a PDA, a personal digital assistant, and they had her assistant put in all the numbers and all the contacts from the books into her PDA. And Jorge was so happy because now he could just roll over and go to the other side. It was the best thing that he ever had in his life was not being put to work at 2 o'clock in the morning with those damn huge books. But they'd be all over the bed and everything. So look for the books. Ask Jorge where the reservation books are from the 70s and 80s. You'll have an hour by hour.
Well, we lost Jorge within the last year.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He was
So anyway, I've got 2 hours of Jorge and I got 4 hours of Judy. If you need raw footage on your doc.
Thanks, Scott. And those, just to be clear, those reservation books were just names and telephone contacts, basically.
Oh, they were names, telephone numbers, and conversations of what was taking place.
So it was like a journal. It was a journal.
It was a journal, day by day. Huge. So maybe the Bancroft has them, because she did them for like 15, from 1975, I think, to 1995.
Wow.
You got 20 volumes of just her hour by hour notes.
Wow. Well, we'll figure out where that wound up. There's a big problem with the Bancroft, and that they've gotten a lot of different archives, like, from like CIL in the early days and such, and they weren't there was no money that went along with them.
Yep.
And as we were doing our research, one video we would find, folks that went up there would find, like, in a banker's box, inside of that, like a paper bag with a bunch of tapes and stuff in there. And one videotape took about a year to get digitized.
And Fred Pelk is a good resource because he was the director of the Oral History Project back then.
Sure.
So he'll have a lot of the audio tapes.
Yeah, well, and his book was a wonderful resource.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what we had done? Was that what it was called? What we had, anyway. Yeah.
Then he did the one in 97, which was a disability rights movement book, the green one. His first book.
Oh, okay.
And that shows all the early years of from 1950 to 1995.
Oh, wow.
And that.
Well, there's also, as I have to tell you, that there's early talk around some documentarians that I've known for a long time, folks with disabilities, of trying to do an eyes on the prize on disability. And when that's a little bit further along, I'm totally going to engage with the museum people about that.
Was that with Eric over that did the Fred Fay piece with Eric Newdell over in Boston? Because he did the Eyes and the Prize. And then you did Fred Fay's.
Yeah. Well, I worked with him and Allison on Lives Worth Living.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's kind of still in a kind of embryonic stage, but I don't know how many people have seen the Renegade series that was online through American Masters on YouTube. But these are the people that produced. It was like 6 or 7 videos on different important but not very well known people with disabilities in history. So
I'm going to set up Jim because Jim Ward spent a lot of time with Judy in the trenches over in DC. So I'm going to tell a DC story that was with to set up Jim story. I was at they do these Senate breakfast meetings at the Capitol. They're really cattle calls, and Durbin was doing one of these cattle calls 7:30 in the morning. And I watched how Judy and Marka work the crowd. They take both their chairs and there's huge double doors that you only can go in one way, get your breakfast buffet, go find a seat, yada, yada, yada. But Marka and Judy would do the wheelchair pinch, and they'd shorten the entrance so everyone would have to go through them. And they say, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? And then after they got everyone in the room, Marka and Judy would peel off, and Marka would take one end of the buffet table, and Judy would take the other end of the buffet table, and do the same tag team. And then when people stopped with the buffet table, they wouldn't eat; they would go table to table, work in the room. And I witnessed that just being back in the corner because that's what we do. We're observers, and just to watch that go down, you're going, wow, now that's how you get things done. And it was a beautiful thing to see. So, but Jim Ward has spent decades with Judy down in the swamps. So I'll let Jim tell some Judy stories, and then
is there a last name for Marka?
Marka Bristow.
Bristow.
Oh, I see. I didn't hear the T. So
Marka Bristow out of Chicago.
Marta Briscoe, of course.
Yeah, we miss her. She left us like 7 years ago.
Yeah,
oh man. Oh,
Hi,
she was.
Jim.
Hi, everybody. I'll be brief. The thing I remember most about Judy is her ability to have fun and be dignified at the same time. You know, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do, and she seemed to have that down. I met Judy in the late 90s when I was director of public policy at NAPIS, which is now NDRN, the National Disability Rights Network. And in 2000, we founded ADA Watch and the Coalition for Disability Rights. And, you know, I got to say, it was not any great skill of mine to get these high-powered people on our advisory council. It was the smart thing I did do was get Justin first. Justin was our founding chair, and everybody wanted to to get on board with our efforts with Justin. And but the one thing I remember, a big thing, Judy would always say yes, and I don't want to sound like I was special. She would say yes to everybody. She really would, and make everybody feel like a friend. And unless you were in her way, unless you were in the opposition, and then look out. But even then, she would be dignified, and so I asked Judy to be a keynote speaker at our disability rights concert that we had, and that was really the kickoff for supporting the ADA Amendments Act. We were talking about the threats to the ADA, the attacks, the weakening efforts in the Supreme Court and in other federal courts. And Judy was a keynote speaker at the Disability Rights Concert with Grammy Award winners Bruce Hornsby and Sweet Honey in the Rock. It was really and Comcast did their red carpet treatment. So they came and filmed it all, and it showed in the Washington, D.C. area for weeks and weeks, talking about how the ADA needed to be restored. And what that concert did was raise quite a bit of money for us with Judy's participation. And that helped fund the Road to Freedom tour, which was about restoring the ADA and keeping the promise of the ADA. And we gathered thousands of petitions and brought them to Congress. And we showed an exhibit with Tom Olin's work. And Tom Olin joined us after we launched the tour. And so I guess I'm trying to show Judy's hands in the restoration of the ADA, because that's something that is not highlighted as much in her history, but she was adamant about the need to put the teeth back in the ADA, and we got that through joint efforts of all the organizations involved, from ADAPT to CCD and everybody in between. But Judy, I was at her memorial too, and it was just clear what a friend Judy was to so many people, and how much she cared, and how much she fully paid attention and engaged when asked. And just a beautiful, beautiful person that we wouldn't be where we are without her. That's for certain. We'd be still fighting some of the battles, and now we are, unfortunately, fighting some of the same battles. And I know Judy is with us in spirit, and I'm grateful to be with you all today. Thank you.
So we've got enough input from old white guys. Any girls out there that have some have some input, some stories?
Austin has his hand up. Go ahead. Yeah.
Alice, are you talking?
I thought, Ashton, did you have your hand up? No. Okay. I was getting
Oh,
us.
I was just clapping.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I couldn't tell.
Sarah, you turned on your mic.
Well, I've got one.
Go for it.
Well, Sarah, you want to go ahead? You want to go first? Well, I met Judy, I'm pretty sure it was the year 2000. Might have met her before that, but I got an award from WID, which was completely unexpected, but it shouldn't, I mean, in some ways it shouldn't have been. It was one of Judy's great loves that I don't think she gets remembered enough for. But disaster preparedness was very important to her. And after the Katrina hurricanes, I created a resource website for folks with disabilities that had to be relocated to new places. And she'd contacted me, called me up about it, asked me who was doing it, why I was doing it. And first couple conversations, I really didn't know why she was calling me. I was just like, I'm talking to Judy Heumann. I can't believe I'm talking to Judy Heumann. And she's asking me about this little volunteer project I'm doing. And then after, I don't know, it was after 3 or 4 months, I got a call from her and she said, "Oh, how would you like to come to California?" And I'm like, "Well, I can't really afford to come to California." I was living in Michigan at the time. And she said, "Well, what if I paid for you to come?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, if you paid for me to come, I would be there in a heartbeat." Um, and then she told me I was getting an award. But that was like that was like the icing on the cake. First, she wanted me to be there and she wanted to make sure um, that she knew the work that I was doing and that it was important. And I don't think I grasped the importance of the work I was doing completely until Judy intervened and asked me more questions about it. So that was not my very first disability project, but that was probably was one of my biggest ones. Um, and getting an award for it actually ended up having the U.S. government take it away from me because it got recognition from WID. Um, but it's still something that I'm really proud of, and I'm really glad that WID and Judy recognized it because that made it feel that much, much more to me than just sort of violently doing web work at home. I think I mean, one of the things that Judy taught me was how important it was that disability advocacy was not all in your face, that there was background work that had to be done, and that was just as important. And so she really encouraged me to sort of be an armchair activist.
Thank you for that, Susan. Sarah, do you have an encounter with Judy?
Well, I had many, but I grew up not knowing who she was, didn't know who she was until Jim and I got involved, and I was already in my, Jim, what, early 50s at that point? I'm not disabled, knew nothing about it. Jim and I start going out and eventually get married, and we were driving in Jim's van, and I have a very good friend in DC, an old, longtime friend, who had a very good friend working at USAID in disability. Somehow, my friend Karen and her friend were having a conversation, and the woman at USAID knew Judy forever, of course. Somehow they put two and two together that I'm going out with Jim, who knew Judy decades ago. My cell phone rings in Jim's van, and it's, um, well, you don't know me, but I'm looking for Jimmy Lebrecht. This is Judy Heumann. I'm like, what the hell? Jim's like, what? They had made this connection. I still don't remember. I just don't remember how. And that's how Jim and Judy got reconnected after a number of decades. And then in making Crip Camp, which I worked on too, I just got to know her so well and was so, what all of you said, she was so personable and warm and amazing, huge heart, and yet so fierce, and had been doing this work for decades. And so for me, as we're working on the film, what kept popping into my mind was how young she was when she started out, and the old footage of her where she has baby fat, right? And she's like fearless. And it started also just, it became really clear to me that, wait a second, back then, other than the women's movement, there weren't women leaders really. It was male, all of those progressive movements. Women were making coffee and being shunted aside. And here she is, this young, baby faced, fierce, fierce leader. And it started me questioning, like, is this one example of what women's leadership looks like? That it's very different. And I think that is very embedded even in, the younger folks today, the disability justice folks. It's very mutual aid, consensus. It's all this stuff that she was doing back then, So anyway, I just grew to love her. Yeah, the phone calls at all hours. I'm like, wait, it's midnight here. We're in California. Judy, it's 3 a.m. What are you doing? She's calling to see how Jimmy's doing. Is he eating all right? I'm worried about him. Or, yeah. And also this vision of her when she was still working at the State Department. I remember her with 3 cell phones all the time. Everybody else is telling me it's 2. I can swear I have a picture in my mind of her with 3 cell phones. One stuck on her wheelchair with Velcro, and the others constantly going back and forth. I just feel incredibly lucky, fortunate to have gotten to know her and fall in love with her like everybody does and be inspired by her. I mean, especially now, Crip Camp has a life of its own and it's being viewed by a lot of people all over the globe. And I think younger people today are finding it and her especially, motivating to see what sustained leadership over the course of a lifetime and decades, what that looks like, and that it's possible, and that you can be successful and you can make change. So yeah, I mean, I miss her so much, especially with what's going on now. Yeah. This is lovely to hear all of your stories. Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly say I did not know Judy. I actually was in undergrad watching Crip Camp in my classes during the semester when I had actually unfortunately learned of Judy's passing. Like the day that it happened, I was in class with Laura Malden, and I grew up with a physical disability, and I was like later diagnosed with autism, and I was in and out of institutions for about 8 years. And growing up, I had never really kind of like met somebody who had modeled what it was like to be like a confident disabled person who like didn't see a problem with being disabled. So it was like really like later in my teenage years and in undergrad where I got exposed to like the history and the culture. And I was like, wow, this is what I've been missing my entire life. And it is amazing to see people just kind of being so like badass and like authentic and themselves. And I was just like absolutely floored. And so I just wanted to offer the perspective of again, somebody who is post ADA generation, but grew up without that sense of community and then and finding it now in my life and in my career. And it's just magical. So I do really appreciate all the work that you all have done. And I just especially when I first watched Crip Camp for the first time, I was just like I will always kind of remember the shot of the person in the wheelchair who's using the crutches to propel themselves like down. I'm like, okay, this is like what it's all about because I was kind of like never I guess the palatable disabled person or and I got a lot of like flack for it and about being like I guess like crude or like ungrateful or whatever. And I was just kind of like, no, like that's not what it's about. But now I'm working as an archivist. I'm working as an archivist and we have like Mouth Magazine in our collections. And we have all this stuff from Speaking for Ourselves, and I'm archiving from the self-determination movement. And it's kind of come full circle for me because I'm like, whoa, like this is like stuff that I didn't know that I want to make sure that like people could see. Um, and yeah, so I just wanted to say like, yeah, I obviously didn't know Judy, but she's making a difference in my life every day. So thank you guys for being here.
And that really brings me back to the point that, Jim, I'm going to ask you you mentioned that you went back after camp and joined up with DIA. And I did a session of old DIA's Car Mossy. Was she back then? Do you remember Car?
No, man, I was like 16 at that point.
Yeah.
So we're talking a bajillion years ago.
I know.
So, I mean, I remember Pat Figueroa because Pat was also a counselor at Camp Jeanette. And and there was a few other folks that if I really wrenched my brain, I would or if I saw a photograph, I would say I remember them. But, that was just a little bit too long ago.
Yeah, I got the interview about 6 of her girlfriends from Brooklyn, the early crowd, and Karamasi comes in. She's a chair user, but she had a tattoo of ADAPT, Free Our People,
Oh,
big old arm, big old arm sleeve, and she's like 80 years old.
far out.
But yeah, what they did with the Nixon and the Rehab Act back in '72, and the Nixon reelection campaign, for those that aren't aware of that, they ended up uh, protesting in one place that nobody was there. And someone says, "Well, you're in the wrong place. Why don't you go down to Nixon's campaign center on Park Avenue or something?" And they closed down Park Avenue, and that was a big splash that she made with closing down the 4 corners of Nixon's reelection headquarters. I love that story.
It's a great story. There's a biopic of Judy that's going to be released by Apple Films probably this fall.
I was thinking they were going to do that for the 50th anniversary. I thought they time it out for the 50th anniversary for maximum impact, but for the election season would be great because that was the director of Coda.
That's right, Sean. I had I was asked to be a executive producer on that film, and Sarah and I got to go up to Toronto where they were filming last summer and just being on the set. And they did an extraordinary job of recreating all the outside and the inside of the federal building, and just all the actors were just wonderful. And so I have high hopes that this film will attract a large audience, and that again our history, which is so important, will be seen. It's dramatized, but it's rather close to the truth. But instead of George Miller and Phil Burton being there, it was just they just had Miller. But that was more of a budgetary thing than anything else. But yeah, the story is needs to be told, and we talk about disability culture, and it came up in a conversation I was on the other day, and wanting uh, what is disability culture? And I don't know, Ashton, do you have an answer to that question? I hate to kind of steer this way, but it's just fascinating me right now. I hope you folks don't mind my asking.
No, we've been dealing with it for 3 years ever since we incorporated disability history and culture
Okay.
collective. But that's a great question because it's kind of tricky depending on what silo you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like for me, I think that um so I think for me the distinction kind of comes with moving past like a rights-based framing and then towards like a like full political and social involvement, and the acknowledgement that disability is not like an isolating experience but has the power to to bring us together, but also we have like kind of political agency. Um, and so I'm inspired a lot by Tobin Sieber's work of like vulnerability and understanding like vulnerability as like a human rights like basis, rather than like as a weakness. And so I was drawn to that a lot, um, when I'm kind of thinking about like what it means to kind of like actually support each other and to support people. But then I'm also like coming from like other activist movements and kind of like seeing how much like is built up, um, like how much foundation you have to build and how much connection like you have to be in like truly in community with people and not just be like advocating for an abstract cause, but to be advocating for the people behind the cause. And to me, I guess like growing up, like I knew I was disabled, but I didn't have people around me like affirming that that was okay and natural and part of just like how it is. It was kind of just like I vividly remember kind of being told that me describing myself as disabled was like an identity issue. And I was like, well, I wasn't saying it in a bad way, but so it's like I guess like there's so much individual focus on bodies and I think and on minds, and I think that when I think about like how you define disability, how do you define disability rights, how do you define disability culture, I'm thinking about how people kind of use the subdivisions like within like disability and how like, every individual experiences it to kind of like isolate us and like prevent us from realizing our like political agency, but also our responsibility to each other as members of this community. And so when I think about disability culture, I'm thinking about like this really like rich like tapestry of everybody that came before me, and then finding my place in that. And that's way different than the ways that I've been taught to think about disability. So, I mean, ask 100 different people, you're going to get 100 different answers. But I think that that's kind of how I'm approaching thinking about this as a culture. Um, I'm not sure if that answered the question.
No, no, it did, and you're right. I just think everybody has a different definition. It depends on where they're coming from. But I do, you know, Judy talked about, you know, it's not me, it's we,
Mhm.
and that was really important to her. And I don't know, there was something about we needed to come together to go apart, and I think she was referring to like Camp Jened a bit, but in essence, and especially when I'm asked by people, you know, what do we do? What do we do? They're slashing this. They're going to take away our rights and stuff. And it's like you got to come together with other people. You know, you got to make a lot of noise right now. And but that also we need to be able to check in on each other.
Mhm.
And simply like if you think you've got a friend with a disability, pick up the phone or send them an email or just kind of check in. And I think there's a great deal of comfort in that that will help try to get us through these really horrible times. But thank you for that answer, Ashton. It means a lot to me.
You know, I wasn't thinking about culture when I wrote. This is a short entry I did, a post on our ADA Watch Facebook page. And if I can read it, it says the disability rights and justice movement at its deepest root is not fundamentally about policy, litigation, or even access. It is about the radical insistence that every human being is a full expression of creation, worthy of life, love, dignity, belonging, and joy. That is not simply a political claim, it is a cosmological one, ancient, universal, joyful at its core. And I really was moved by Ashton talking about vulnerability. I think, you know, to experience joy, we need to be vulnerable. And Washington, working in Washington is such a stoic place. And you know, but Justin can talk about love, you know, and can the rest of us legitimately talk about love? Because at its core, that's what this movement is about. And I don't know if that relates to culture, but I hope our culture includes joy.
I um, I got to meet a woman who's a trauma therapist who actually worked. I don't know if anybody saw the documentary Patrice.
Yeah.
Um, it was about the marriage penalty, and which wound up winning an Emmy Award. But I met this woman who was kind of working with Patrice during the making of the film, and I asked her as everything was going to crap, you know, what do you tell people? And she said, you just got to try to find joy. You try to find joy in each day, and you know, if it's taking 10 minutes out for a cup of tea, that's you know something positive. But you know, and you
And
know,
people need to view us as having joy and experiencing joy and not being confined to wheelchairs or, you know, all those other terms that are used.
right.
And that reminds me of this little, it's about 5 years ago. I came across this on YouTube. I'll put it in the link, but it's kind of cultural. It's Drunk History, and they did a
Yeah.
piece on Judy, which is kind of like a cultural take on just sitting around the table and being part of the we and that. But I thought they
You
did
do
a
shots or what? What's the drunk part?
Oh yeah, oh it's great. You'll love it. You'll love it. They do all kinds of. They're just a couple PhD historian people that needed to find a niche, and so they said, "Well, we'll just get drunk and we'll do historical figures through the that appeal to us." So they sit around, drink a bunch of bourbon, and do reenactments. And there's a 12-minute piece, drunk history on Judy.
That's great.
I just I laughed. I said, "Yeah, that's the way to tell history to a 16-year-old."
You know, I quit drinking 30 years ago, but I like being around drunks. I do.
And a key piece of that is that, of course, they get the history wrong because they're drunk. So part of the drunk history on Judy is something about, oh yeah, Jefferson Airplane came and played for them at the 504. No such thing.
That didn't happen.
Keep running into the story. People are like, did the Jefferson Airplane really? No. Drunk history. You know, it's delightful.
This is Alice, and do I remember correctly that Allie Stroker played Judy in
Yes.
that?
Yes.
We have a lot going on in the chat, and if it's all right, could we take a 5-minute break to give Michelle 5 minutes to rest her hands, and we'll come back at 8:20, 20 minutes after the hour, and continue with our conversation. Great.
Get some more hot water for my feet.
Once again, the I Love You Lead On community and all of its various projects are volunteer-led. We have a variety of ways you can support our efforts to provide full access. Our work includes the Disability History and Culture Collective, DHACC, this space, Deva's Room, Judy's Room, Justin's Room, and other events on the horizon. There is a QR code on the screen, and you can also donate at iloveyou-leadon.com, ILYLO, capitalized, /donate. And we appreciate any donation. Before we leave and go back to the conversation, I'll bring this back up. But again, just to remind you that we do have past episodes up on the playlist. We have iloveyouleadon.com is the basic place where you can find everything that we're doing. And if you'd like to share your feedback about this event at https:// bit.ly/ all caps ILYLO all caps DHACC event feedback, capital E and F. Thanks so much.
I wanted to go back to your last question, Jim, on culture. I think one of the unique things about disability is that we create our culture amongst our peers. If you're in the Black community, your parents were probably in the Black community, your grandparents and your great-grandparents. So this community has been passed on for generations. With the disability community, it could have been passed on for generations, but not by your family. So your family isn't who you're biologically related to. Your family are those people who share what you consider important, what's culturally has become important to you. And when SDS was still going strong, we would have 4 or 5 days of meetings, but the last day was a dance. And that dance, I think, meant more to everybody than the rest of the conference. Like the rest of the conference was an excuse to have the dance.
Yeah,
because
I heard that.
Yeah, because it was one of the few places, I think, that we came together where we were all okay, just the way we were. We were all loved and accepted, and we were okay. And we live in a world where, as people with disabilities, we confront barriers and obstacles and mean people all the time. And that was sort of the one place where you could let down in ways that you couldn't anyplace else and just be yourself.
I'm going to introduce Grover here. Jim and Jim. You probably may not have met Grover, but he's the guardian of Lois Curtis's archives over in Atlanta. So Olmsted Act and that. So among other things, Grover, you can contribute some insights on our conversation today.
Well, I am going to make a reference to the one time that I was in the presence of Judy, Judith Heumann. It was arranged. I'm constructing this in a brain that is quickly forgetting things. I do remember that when I arrived at the event, I think a good bit of it had taken place, and she was with 3 or 4 folks who were waiting for a van. And so, I guess I just lucked out. Here I am chatting with her as though we were old friends. I mean, she's the one that sort of spoke to me as though we were old friends. And I made a reference to a comment that a professor, I think her name was James, last name James. I think they were sisters at the New Jersey School of Technology, and the James sisters had written a book. But anyway, I was in a sort of a session with this professor, and she made the comment that Olmsted gave teeth to the ADA. And so there I am sharing that with Judith, and she agreed to some extent. I guess she was also reacting to the fact that I was complaining about the service providers for Lois Curtis were essentially keeping her from us. We didn't even know where Lois was at the time. It had to be sometime between 2019 and when she died, maybe 6 months before she died. So anyway, that's when the event was taking place, and so that which Judith agrees with, I've sort of repeated many times. So at some point, I may give her full credit for saying, something that perhaps she did not exactly say. But anyway, I did hear one of the speakers tonight make just a fleeting reference to giving teeth to the ADA. So I do know that, Olmsted, when it is fully realized, certainly gives teeth. And so that's my my comment about having met her once.
I'm ignorant about certain things, but can you just briefly tell me about Lois Curtis? Am I the only one that doesn't know who that is?
Well, don't get me started. Actually, I will complete this on
You don't have to be too
June
brief.
10th.
And
Well, anyway,
Grover, this is Alice. Plug
Lois,
your presentation in June. You can plug your presentation for Devin's room.
Okay, well, we'll just do this. I'll turn your pink wall into a extravaganza. I'm an artist, and Lois Curtis was truly an artist. I'm primarily an illustrator, a medical illustrator, but Lois Curtis was the primary plaintiff in the Olmsted Supreme Court decision.
Got it.
Lois Curtis is the individual who, she became part of the Georgia mental health, developmental disability housing. I think she was about 15 when she started. And so she during, I think it was about 1994, she met a attorney with the Atlanta Legal Aid, Sue Jemison. And Sue Jemison actually lived across the street, Brockcliffe here in Atlanta, from one of the Georgia mental health entities, and Lois Curtis was living there at the time. So they met, and this attorney, Sue Jemison, gave Lois her phone number, and Lois, the story is that Lois just called her frequently saying, I want to get out of this place. She was there as a, what do you call it, an inmate, a patient, whatever. And so anyway, that started what became a 8 or 9 year proposition of taking the state of Georgia on, when the state of Georgia, a man by the name of Tommy Armstead, who was an official, said that it was too expensive to allow folks, Lois being one of them, to live in the community. Well, anyway, ultimately in 1999, after a lot of drama, it was Lois prevailed. Lois and a lady named Elaine Wilson. They were the two plaintiffs in this case. And so in 2000, I think, Judge Shub, it became a law, or it was actually, I think it was a settlement agreement, So the settlement agreement that Lois Curtis is now famous for in some realms is that which I refer to as far as Lois Curtis is concerned. I met Lois Curtis in a group home out near Stone Mountain, Georgia, in 2005, and she asked me if she could draw my face, and I said yes, and she did, and so in 2009 we were actually brought into a formal relationship through citizen advocacy of Atlanta and DeKalb. And then I just sort of hung around with Lois, and we went to the White House to meet President Obama. And I think that was 2000, maybe 12. Anyway, I can't remember dates, but anyway, I need a timeline. So, at what point would you like for me to tell you more?
I think I have the picture here, and there's a bunch of stuff that went into the chat. So, and once you started telling me this, and I saw a photograph of Lois, I said, "Oh yeah, now I know who we're talking about." So, thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad I didn't give you an opportunity to shut me up.
No, you kept talking very well.
I put a link in from the national. I put a link in, Drover, from the National Women's History Museum.
Yeah,
I put that in the chat, and that gives a little bio. And that they haven't updated their file. Wow. They haven't put her death date in yet. They still have her birth date, but they haven't updated.
November 3rd.
Some others in as well. Yeah. Grover, I found a book that I think is maybe the one you were mentioning. It's called Finding Teresa, A True Story About My Sister and Me by Frank James. And it sounds like it might be about someone that they were working to move into the community. I don't know if that's the book that you were talking about.
Okay. Well, actually it was two sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was a professor at New Jersey School of Technology, like the Georgia Tech counterpart. So it sounded like you were saying Frank. Did you say Frank?
It's Franke, so maybe it's Frankie. I'm not really sure, but the last name was James.
Okay. Well, perhaps that is, because I think these sisters had written several books. Mm-hmm. So very possible. I'll have to look into that. That sounds like interesting additional information. Yes. Well, thank you for doing that. Yes. And actually, if I may, I noticed that you have a pink wall behind you, and the reason I make a reference to that is just this past Friday and Saturday, there was an event in London that is termed Artistic UK Pink PNK.
Mm-hmm.
And I am planning to commandeer that and bring it to Atlanta and call it Artistic USA Georgia Pink. So anyway, it may not sound coherent at this point, but it will be.
It's actually in real life. It's a little redder than pink, but
Oh,
I'll take
well,
any.
I'm going to put it in my. I took a picture of it, if I may.
Yeah, sure,
I've
sure,
already
sure.
done it, and I'm going to put it in the iPhone fun machine. So
Okay, well,
that will be
great.
that will be coherence. There will be coherence at some point. Okay. Yes. Well, thank y'all.
Yeah,
I
thanks, man.
certainly have enjoyed this evening's presentations. Makes me feel that I knew her, you know, more than perhaps I did, because she certainly treated me as though we knew each other and had. And I guess as far as the fraternity or sorority fraternity of life, I guess we did.
Well, I've gotten a great deal out of this evening. It's really wonderful connecting again with you, Scott, and meeting Jim and Grover and Ashton and
Oh, you and Jim haven't met yet?
no.
Oh, Jim, you should tell about the Freedom. He did the Freedom Bus Tour back in 2008, 2009 with Tom Olin. Remember the roundabout with the Freedom Bus? Jim, are you
Yeah,
still
well,
there?
yeah, and I think Eric and Allison, Eric Nudell maybe was part of. I remember when it came to town, they were around with the bus.
Yeah, yeah. He was the founder of that, the Freedom Bus Tour, Road to Freedom, and that.
Far out. Well, I think I need to peel off just because I'm getting a
Yeah,
little bit tired here, friends. I know
West Coast
it's
West Coast nap time.
yeah. Well, yeah, the sun is still out here, but I've been anyway. My spoons have been a little bit in short supply, if you
Well,
understand.
I'm
If
glad
you've
you were
heard that,
here.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm love to come, back
Please
and
come again.
thank you.
We've
And
got something going on most Wednesday nights. Not every Wednesday, but 3 out of 4 or 5.
okay, great.
It
Well,
it was
yeah.
so lovely to meet you. I
Yes.
see whenever I come to these things, it's like somebody I've only ever read about and they're right here. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. So thank you for coming.
Far out. Well, I'm assuming, Ashton, that your email is probably in that address is in that list of emails that Susan sent out. So I'd certainly
Yes,
like
I will
to
send
stay
it
in
to
touch.
you.
Can you
That'd be
get the
great.
Google groups? Are you on the Google groups too, Jim, with either the Disability Museum or the lead on?
Yeah, so I got it. I got the lead on for this, and I've been on the museum
Okay, great.
list and kind of lurked there for the most part, but kind of knowing that at some point, when we're doing more of. Anyway, what's really important to me, friends, is that I've managed to be able to be involved with two documentaries that have really documented our history. And so, and I feel like I want to, that this Judy story is important, but also this kind of like, beginning of this idea of you know, disability in America
Mm-hmm.
and our history, and that it involves movements and culture and fashion and all sorts of different things. And then I think that an overview of all of that, um, I think that it's really important to be made. And I'm going to take the privilege that I have and see what I can do to support other filmmakers and and trying to make these things happen. And, there are wonderful documentary filmmakers like Reed Davenport, who made this film called Life After. That's out right, and it's kind of on the circuit right now, and dealing. Anyway, don't ask me to get the names correct, but all I'm saying
We're
is
actually hoping to be showing Life After in the next month or so.
great. And I helped found an organization called Forward Doc, FWD-DOC.org, and we were created to help support documentary filmmakers with disabilities. And over the last 5 years or so, we have over 1,300 members in 32 countries. And these are
Wow.
filmmakers and allies. And it really, anyway, that's everything I got inside my brain.
Is that with that's with Muhammad
Daya Muhammad?
Daya Muhammad, yeah. I ran into her in 2007 and I ended up photographing her wedding in New Orleans at the House of Blues. Yeah, Day's great.
She's a good friend.
Oh, good. Say hi to Day. And her wife's name is
Renee.
Renee, Day and Renee, of course.
Yeah, they adopted a young girl, a baby. They knew the birth mother. So anyway, Tavia. So
good. Yeah, one of my niece is doing the same thing. Birth mother.
I just put your information about that in the chat, Jim.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Alice.
You're welcome.
And it's
Jim,
yeah.
excuse me. I have, and no one has actually seen it. I have an hour and 50-minute documentary of Lois Kurz when she was preparing to go in 2014 to the John Jay School of Criminal Justice. She had been invited up there, and I had just bought my first iPhone. Anyway, I was just there. I turned it on. And then when an hour and 15 minutes later, I turned it off, and it is a fabulous documentary. And it is art. It is Lois Curtis, the artist. That's what she's talking about and showing.
Wow.
So anyway,
and I've got 2 hours.
We'll file that one away for that.
And I've got 2 hours of Sue Jameson, an hour with Lois, and there was another person involved in the case when I was in Atlanta that they brought into the picture. So,
well,
Scott, is that on? Excuse me, Grover. Scott, is your footage on YouTube at all right now?
All my footage is unpublished. I got the first 500 clips as a proof of concept, and no, I've got that's my struggle is publishing this 1,600 because only 30 have been published, and those were the first 30 that Eric did, and that in the format that I want to break them into 5 to 10 minute clips. But I need some funding for kids to put some kids to work. They can become storytellers,
right?
And that. Ay. So, kiddos.
So, we got any more Judy stories?
We don't have a topic or a storyteller for next month, but Susan is working on it. We tossed some ideas about with Fred Pelka at our Wednesday meeting, and we have some names and some ideas. So please watch the website, and we're also on LinkedIn and Facebook, which is where we promote the events. And we're so glad that everyone was able to come tonight and share their stories about Judy Heumann. Susan, you want to lead us out?
Absolutely. So, Judy's room will be coming up. We're going to be talking about the homeless that are being incarcerated in Utah for being homeless and receiving mental health treatment against their will. So that's a dehumanizing part of this administration. That'll be Judy's room. And then Deborah's room, we're going to be talking about freaks and monsters. The origin of freak shows goes back to the 1800s, where it showed people with disabilities, or not with disabilities, but being portrayed as freaks of nature. And it became a viable occupation for many with disabilities. So the freak show, how we think of it now, is very different from the way we thought of it then. For people with disabilities, it was really a viable means of employment. So what's going to be talking about the origin, and then what happened in the past, 200 years. We now have horror films, that have people with disabilities. We have AI. We have all sorts of things going on. So that will be the topic for Deborah's room. And Justin's room next month, not sure yet. If there's somebody you want to tell a story about, send me a message, let me know.
And thank you, as always, to Michelle for our
Thank you all. Thank you.